me well know I am an easy crier and didn't think there'd be anything that would make me tear up today, but we'll see. As she mentioned, Holly, thank you so much for nominating me to do this. This is something I never would have raised my hand for myself because by day I'm an executive creative director in the advertising industry. I'm very comfortable, lack anxiety when presenting to a C-suite at any major company because I'm coming in because they have a need for creative and I get to be the unicorn that brings that magic in. This is hella intimidating because I'm speaking to a room of all people who appreciate creativity on another level and have some flavor of it within themselves. And I'm hoping that I can provide value to you that you don't already have or help you recognize it in a way that you haven't. So wish me luck. All right, so quick bio. I'm a managing partner and executive creative director at Shine with over 15 years of experience in the advertising industry. I'm a seasoned writer and creative director, adept at leading teams to deliver impactful campaigns. My comprehensive understanding of marketing strategies and a keen eye for creativity have consistently driven successful outcomes. Just kidding. So, she mentioned AI, but we're talking about perspective today, and I think this is going to happen a lot. We'll just accept it. This is what I'm getting at, because that bio was created by a robot, and we're not robots. And the most important thing we can take away from our personal perspectives is that. And we can embrace robots. I believe in AI as a useful tool for certain things, but the perspective that we can bring from ourselves is always going to be that value that the world needs. So, who the heck am I really? I mean, those things are true, but I'm not a robot. So, I'm a multifaceted human being, just like all of you, and that's what we're going to dig into today. First, I'm a wife and a mom of two. I have a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. And that has brought me plenty of perspective. With our question prompt this morning about personal life experiences and what that brings into our professional experiences, my first thing that came to mind was the kids and recognizing when they have little meltdowns and they can't control their feelings. It's often because they're hungry or they're tired, and the reality is when we start to recognize that in the people in our professional life, that maybe they just didn't get enough sleep or they've had a hard time, and we have that empathy for each other, like recognizing that and having that perspective. I'm sorry.
You just need a donut.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that has brought perspective. I'm a creative director at Shine United. We're about 50-person independent ad agency located in Madison. I live in Cedarburg. We have a growing number of team members in the Milwaukee-ish area. Full-service agency. We also have a full-service production company with a massive studio in Madison. So they work independently on video and photo needs. You guys kind of get that part, right? Like, we understand that. I'm also a DIYer and creator. The term influencer makes me uncomfortable still. But that is something that I started having a passion for and really owning that passion and the perspective that it brought to other parts of my life just in recent years. I'll touch on that a little bit later. And then because somebody believed in me, Abby of Little Village, and gave me an opportunity to design that space for her, that's grown into getting to call myself an interior designer because I've been taking on a number of design clients in home and commercial spaces lately and leaning into that. And that's a lot of things to be. I want to be clear, I'm not encouraging everybody to have a million side hustles. That's not healthy. But there are passions and pursuits that you have, and it's okay to not just try and define yourself by one of them, as that first slide that a robot made was trying to do. So that brings us to this theme of perspective. It can mean a lot of things, but today my goal is to kind of walk through the process toward owning it and owning your own. And so that's first finding your perspective, growing your perspective, and then, as I said, ultimately owning it. Because the reality is when you own your perspective, it's going to make you a stronger, more confident, and more in-demand creative, and creative by any definition of those. So how do we do that? First, finding your perspective. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that everything that makes you, like it's going to sound a little cheesy, but is valuable, and that is important. And that even means the parts of yourself that you don't love. So that might be things like bad habits, childhood traumas, all of those types of things. When you recognize them and take the skills and lessons that they've given you and realize that that forms your perspective, and then that can bring fresh needs and perspective to any kind of conversation or opportunity, that's value. The images you're seeing here are from a campaign that myself and my colleagues did for UW Health, one of our clients, and the need there was personalized healthcare. That was the prompt, right? How do we promote that we have some of the most personalized healthcare? And we were talking amongst ourselves about perspective, and I had been doing a lot of soul searching at that time about my own perspective and feeling like I'm this weird, multi-passionate person, and is that okay when I'm supposed to be this thing? And we actually took that and ran with it and leaned into it and created this campaign where we told stories of people and leaned into the multifacets of their life, calling out that healthcare needs to do the same. So even if you're working in the healthcare industry, you have to recognize there's creativity there. You have to recognize people have multifaceted lives, and healthcare needs to think about that. They need to think about all of those different parts of them and not just, gender, age, ethnicity, and treat in that way. So that became the foundation of that campaign. My point being, it's a truth that extends into everything in life. When we talk about finding our perspective, I want to call out once more that it is applicable to all parts of life, so not just the career, resume, interviews, but your community involvements, your relationships. As Annie and I were chatting about it came up even your online dating profile. Leaning into that perspective instead of the generic version of what you think you're supposed to say is going to yield big gains. So finding your perspective. Again, I said this is going to just keep happening. This actually worked its way into this presentation this week. I had been at a conference on tourism, and there was an amazing speaker, and she spoke, her info is right up there, Professor Laura Hong. She gave this metaphor that really stuck with me, and basically, you're a diamond. Shine bright, whatever. Lean into that, but what the metaphor means is that you have, like a diamond, imperfections and flaws. You're also carved into many different facets, and you have all of these cuts. And when we recognize diamonds can be this beautiful thing even though they're flawed, and they shine even brighter when they understand where their different facets and cuts are, and then can angle them toward that part of the environment or that light source, depending on what scenario they're in. That's when we are really owning and honing our perspective. You're leaning into, I've got this flaw, but if I show off this part of my life experience in this scenario, things are going to shine brighter. I'm going to illuminate something new in this situation. And I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful metaphor that she shared. You can go ahead. So then digging into finding your perspective. So I personally was doing a lot of this hard work, and we'll get into the work of it in the last few years. So I have come up in the advertising industry from being a copywriter to a creative director, and that was like kind of how I defined myself in my professional definition of self. With time, I started to not be able to ignore the whispers of this passion I had in building and constructing like big DIY projects and the therapeutic feeling I was getting from that, or in my passion for interior design, which I didn't know had always been there. And I was like, what are these parts of me and how do they fit into this narrow definition of myself? And should they, and does that undermine my professional self if I do embrace those parts or make them public? And I had to do a lot of work to kind of grapple with that. What I realized is that those parts were actually really beautiful, and when I lean into them more, I'm providing more value, and there are skills across those passions and different life experiences that are bringing value to my professional life. So it wasn't until I started taking on design clients that I began to realize how much my skills and experience in my day job were translating over to the side biz when I'm starting to work with a design client and I'm able to get to understand who they are and their story and help share that in a fresh way. That's pulling from my professional experience into this side passion. But then even more so in the reverse, when I am exploring spatial problems or trying to work budgets with really limited means or get my hands dirty and roll my sleeves up, those types of skills were making me stronger in my professional career in advertising. And it's not a bad thing to have those multiple interests and to allow everybody who knows you to be aware that you have those multiple facets. It's not something to hide. In fact, I found it was something to embrace. And then with creating content online, another thing, I'm like, am I going to be taken less seriously as a professional when I'm sharing on social in a personal way? And what I found is, in fact, clients, my day job clients, all follow that now, and they're asking me about my home projects, but then they also recognize that that's bringing professional perspective to the projects that I'm doing for them, and they've appreciated that. It's also given me insight into how to reach the social audiences and navigate digital media and learnings I wouldn't have had just from reading research in my day job. So again, perspective. So when you're trying to grow your own and find your own, it's reflecting, identifying the skills that you have. That can be through journaling, that can be through therapy, yay, therapy, going through your whole life experience and thinking about, where you were born, your genetics, this wild job that you once had that you're not proud of, all of those types of things. It's doing the work to go through that, and that's what I did, was a lot of writing and journaling about what were these experiences I've had, what are the skills and perspectives they gave me, and now what can I do with that? Does that give me an edge here or there? That's that first step, is finding that perspective that you already have, and no matter how vanilla you think your life might be, I promise you're gonna find those nuggets, often hidden in like the less shiny parts of life, that you're gonna realize make you more resilient or provide a unique perspective into your different pursuits. So then, once you've started to do that work, it's recognizing, where do I grow from here? Or how do I challenge some of these things? There's always gonna be room for more growth. So first we're gonna pause and we're gonna do a test. And this is gonna be fun. Grab your phone and get ready to type. Or write, if you're a note taker, this works on paper too. Okay, so this is gonna demonstrate where our opportunities for growth are when it comes to perspective. So this is an exercise called forward flow. It's all scientific and such. This again was something that I had seen from Professor Laura Hong's presentation earlier this week. She's a Harvard professor. She knows her stuff. I'm just replicating it here. So we're gonna just go for like 15 seconds. And how this works is you've got your first prompt word of diamond, okay? You're gonna write, we're gonna make a list. The next word, what does the word diamond make you think of? Then forget the word diamond. This next word you've written, what does that word make you think of? Then what does that word make you think of? And go as long and fast as you can. And I'll tell you when to stop. And go. And stop. Okay, who's gonna be really brave and read their list? I can't, you're not raising your hand, I'm gonna make you do it, Jax. Burnt, please. I know yours will be entertaining, so it might include booger or something. What was the last one? Neat. Neat. I love it. I love it. And so I didn't give you as much time as I'd like to because I don't want to take your whole morning. But what this exercise does, and as you look through your list, is it is a scientific way of testing your ability to think conceptually and broadly And when you have a broader perspective, you're going to find that your first word and your last word are farther apart from each other. So we're going to look at the data of this real quick, and this is the real science-y stuff. So in this one, what you'll see is two different people. The prompt word they were given was toaster. One went to burnt, then split, then lightning, then grease lightning, and so on, making it all the way to men. And I had to look, what does river do with men? I think it's a hockey team in Illinois. They really went there and quickly from toaster to men. This other person went bread, butter, jelly, and made it to cake. Toaster to cake. When their algorithms and sciencey stuff measures this, they're looking at how far and fast apart are these words getting. And the person up top, as you see, scored higher. They have a broader perspective. They've had more life experiences. Their brain can make quicker, bigger leaps. And if you're finding that your list is looking a little more like the bottom one, that's a good sign that we need to have some new life experiences and think a little bit differently. So I thought that was super cool and a good reminder for all of us. All right, so thank you for humoring me with that. Now we talk about growing our perspective. So there's the acknowledgement that we never are grown enough, right? What do we do? How do we do this? First, easy one, when our phones are always with us, is to retrain the algorithm. So who you follow on social is going to influence your perspective, whether you want to believe it or not. If you search a certain type of home decor on Pinterest, that's going to influence your perspective there. All these types of things are being fed to you, and sometimes you got to say, fuck off, algorithm, I'm going to find something else. And you got to search the weird stuff, and you got to look for creators that aren't in your comfort zone, that aren't what you think you're trying to emulate, and make the algorithm interact with those posts. Even, there are a lot of lurkers on social. Tap the heart, because it's going to serve you more of that spicy stuff. And that is such a good way that I've found to grow my perspective, especially in design and creative spaces, is this gal has become a good friend of mine. Her name is Medina, and she lives in the UK. We chat on Instagram all the time. And she is a Black Muslim woman. And to use her own words, she says, my whole identity is controversial, right? And so I followed her because I thought her home decor was an interesting, cool style that wasn't quite like mine, but would push some of my style. And you can see some colors and boldness that ended up in Little Village style. But I've learned about Ramadan from her. Happy Ramadan, by the way. And to those fasting, kudos. But my point is, in intentionally looking for other people who are outside my niche, outside of my comfort zone and my style, I'm not only pushing the boundaries of my design opportunities, I'm learning things about culture and life that are so valuable, and that's going to change and bring new perspective to my own projects and help me win there. All right, how else? Get the fuck offline. So you've trained your algorithm, now set it down. And easy ways are to be outside and exploring, and those are the things we hear a lot. An interesting thing is to meet up with old friends. So I say old because when you meet up with somebody you knew in childhood or high school, you're going to see how you've grown similarly and differently. And if you're very, very much the same still, maybe you need to have some new life experiences. If you've grown differently, that'll help you reflect on, since I knew that person, I've had some new perspectives introduced. How can I use that? What value does that bring? Talk to strangers, take a class, listen to a podcast that's not in your normal niche, preferably not murder-based. Go to community events. Check. Yay, you're ahead of the game. But also go to the truck pull at the county fair. Go to things you wouldn't normally do. Draw at Dandy, especially if you're not somebody who thinks you're good at drawing. It's a great way to have that experience and grow. Drag Queen Story Hour at the Little Village. Also highly recommend that. Lots of ways to grow that perspective. Get it on your calendar and do it. Actually do it. Book it. And it doesn't always have to cost anything. Then Once we've started to grow our perspective and continue to do so, it's owning your perspective. And what does that mean? So first, this is kind of controversial, and there are a lot of people who make a lot of money on this, helping you build your personal brand. And I'm in branding, and I make money telling people that that's important, but you as a human being are not a brand. And I want people to stop saying that, because what that does is gives you this limited brand guidelines you think you need to live and communicate and operate within, and that is ruining your creativity and your opportunity. And I want to be clear, you may have a brand, you may have a business, and we'll get to that. That is the thing. But your perspective should be growing and evolving all the time. And if you think you've created for yourself this identity that you need to live and communicate and present yourself within, you're only shutting out opportunity. So you can fight me on that in my DMs later. But then moving on, I think it's a cliche, but it's so true. Everyone else is taken. So don't be tempted to copy what is working for someone else. It's working for them because it is unique to them. And that's so tempting when we're looking at how somebody presents their creative portfolio, or the way they design something, or the way that they're solving problems in their pursuits or career. It's working for them because it's theirs. You got to find yours. Your values, hobbies, your atypical work history, that's your superpower, and you shouldn't hide it. So a couple of examples, owning your perspective as an individual. I told you we're going to get to business next. Couple people stand out. So on the far left is a senior writer on my team. Her name is Mandy Rodeo. What a cool name. It was the first hire I made on the creative team when I had joined and been brought in to lead it. She is such a cool person. And what stood out to me was not that her copywriting work was amazing. It was. But what I remember of my interview with her was that she is in a band. She can play the bass guitar like a bad bitch. She is a stand-up comedian and does stand-up in Chicago. And at the time, now she lives in New York with her partner and does stand-up there. That told me she's quick. She can think on her feet. She can present to a room and my clients. I didn't need to even know a whole lot about her creative writing portfolio. As long as it didn't suck, I was like, okay, we can work with this. And she has proven to be a rock star in every sense of the word. But she didn't hide those passions and pursuits. And that's why I was like, we need to hire this girl. And she fought me on salary, and she won. And like, for all of those reasons, because she deserved it. For all those reasons, she came out ahead because she leaned into the perspective she could bring into situations that other people might not have mentioned in the first interview. Then we've got our own Annie. I don't know where she is now. She's probably trying to give me like time, like we're at time, and I'm just gonna ignore her. But if you don't know enough about Annie, which probably most don't yet because we're still in the early stages, but obviously she's already crushing it. She has a background in a lot of shit too. So she was a youth teacher. She worked with small kids. She has lived in Wisconsin. She's lived on the coast. She's been around. She's lived abroad. She has also worked in creative recruiting. And all of these things are why she's really good at running this stuff. And she's got a diverse background and a diverse resume, and that's going to set her up for a lot of opportunities, a lot of different potential career paths or pursuits or support for her community, because she brings in perspective from every one of those things. So when you're thinking, I can't pursue this because I'm this, I want you to think again, because it might be the best thing that you could do. Then we've got DJ. He is co-owner of Coffee Makes You Black. And we had our last event there, and it was wonderful. This picture's from there. And while he was there, I thought, I know that guy. And I realized I had previously, on a client project, done a video about him when he was a student at Marquette. And he was a student at Marquette and was featured in that video because he'd received a wonderful scholarship. At that time, he was majoring in engineering. He was on the track team. And today, He is the most ridiculously impressive community leader. Like I mentioned, co-owns Coffee Makes You Black. He also runs, I can't even list them all, but multiple volunteerism groups, a camp for boys and their dads or their male mentor figures. He does all of these things. He worked in construction, but he graduated from Marquette in engineering. Like I said, had a construction background, and he's running a local coffee shop that is benefiting his community in amazing ways. And all of those different parts of his background brought perspective to these pursuits. Again, we're seeing this trend of like multifaceted people being the best kind. So you all are that. It's about leaning into that. So then we talk about as a business, okay, these are brands. But when you're looking at the branded version of your business, lean into that perspective as well. So Earthside Nursery, they're actually doing work. We have some wannabe prairie land behind my home that we wanted to restore and do right. And they have helped create the most beautiful design that's going to be completely native and just really beneficial. And you know what they could have done? They had this passion for landscaping and plants, and they could have looked at other models, and this is what worked. These are the plants that sell the highest volume. You know, we can go that route. These things are pretty. We know people will like them, crank, but they didn't. They leaned into their passion, and they leaned into their education on these specific native topics, and they leaned into that niche that's not going to be for everyone, but hell, it was the reason I went to them, and it's the reason I'm hoping some of you will too. Doing that gave them an edge and made them stand out. They said, just because this model works for other people doesn't mean it's what is for us. It doesn't align with our perspective and our background and our passions. We're gonna go this way, and I'm telling you, their business is gonna thrive for it. We've got Abby with Little Village. She wouldn't share this story, but I'm her biggest fangirl, and I will. Shortly after they opened, it was Pride Month, she had a flag outside, and it disappeared. And we're gonna tell ourselves that somebody loved it so much they wanted to take it home with them. But just to be safe, Abby's response to somebody taking her Pride support flag from the front of her business was to lean in harder. She broke every rule of being a business tailored to people with young children and said, we're gonna lean into Pride. And so she hired local painters to paint Pride messaging all over the beautiful windows at the front of her store. Because, sorry, here it comes. Because she said, this is who I am, and this is my business, and this is what my community needs. And I'm not gonna hide this perspective because they need to feel seen here. And that broke all of the business guidance rules she could have been given. But you know what? The people who aligned with those values showed up hard. And if you've been to Little Village, you know there's a wait list because it is so beloved now. Again, leaning into the perspective and breaking from what's expected. All right, so I'm done, but you're not. If you believe in this and you are starting to feel a little bit inspired to own and grow your perspective, here's the quick summary homework. First is finding it, write it down, type it up, all those things that shape your perspective, the good, the bad, the ugly. Identify the skills and the areas for growth, then grow it. Put it on your calendar. Book coffee with somebody you met today that has a totally different vocation than you. Schedule a class, sign up for the library's free speakers. Do all of that, but commit to it. Put it on the calendar. I need to get better at that myself. Own it. Then once you've done that work, analyze your resume, your business model, your dating profile, your content. Look at all of that. Your home decor too, where you live. Are you buying things because Studio McGee's Target line said it was cool right now, or because it's reflective of you and your story? And ask, how can I bring my unique perspective forward and own its value? Thank you.